Welcome to the creative brain of Dean Hawk. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and equipped to become a better ministry leader.
Hey, welcome to the Dean Hawk Leadership Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into today's subject, I just want to remind you about Dr. Cloud and Dr. Townsend's Ultimate Leadership Conference. I have sent 11 of my team members to this conference, and every one of them has said it is life-changing, life-transforming. When we say conference, it's not a conference of hundreds and thousands of people. It's a conference, you're in the room with these two authors of the phenomenal book Boundaries, and they're just phenomenal men of God. You're in the room with them and their consulting team that navigates you through a Monday through Wednesday conference, and there's about 40 to 50 people in the room. It is one of the most phenomenal, life-changing things I've ever been a part of. And there's two that are coming up, September 9th through the 13th. It's in Southern California, and November 18th through the 22nd. And if you want to know more about it, go to growthskills.org. And if you decide you want to go, their registration fee includes 5 nights of hotel, a large percentage of your meals. So just take that into consideration. And if you want $100 off when you're registering, you can put in the coupon code 100WS, 100WS. But I encourage you to go this September, this November, growthskills.org, and please check it out. I am going to be sending multiple staff members still who have not had a chance to go. I am making that investment into them. All right. Today, we're going to dive into today's subject, and it's a little bit of maybe a morbid topic, but we're going to talk about developing a catastrophic plan for your organization and for your church. And the question comes down to, what happens to your ministry or church if you, the senior leader, should suddenly die? You're in a car accident, you're in a plane crash, whatever that might look like. And some people say, well, I don't want to think that way. I don't want to plan that way. I think it's crucial. That we prepare for all scenarios. And one of those is if I, the lead pastor, and or if Kim and I would happen to be killed in an accident. Way back in the 90s, a friend of mine in a different state was pastoring, and he and his wife were co-pastors, and they were coming back from a missions trip, and their lead associate pastor, their executive pastor, picked them up in the church van at the airport and was driving them back was picking them up late one evening and driving them home. A tire went out on the van rolled, all three anchor senior leaders of that church were killed, and that church and that board was left in disarray. And there was no catastrophic plan, there was no organization or structure. And not only did you lose the senior pastor's spouse and co-pastor, you lost that lead go-to executive pastor or lead associate pastor that you would lean on to run things in your absence. And so what I want to do is just share some things. We developed this. We've not had this. We're 20 years old. We only developed this about 5 years ago. And the only reason I hadn't before is no one had told me to do it, and I hadn't thought about it. So I just want to walk you through very briefly our catastrophic plan, some of the things that we've put in it. You can identify those attributes and do it yourself. So one of the things that we do in our annual board meeting each January is we review the catastrophic plan. And there are some areas and some things that might be updated, might be changed. And I'll explain some of those areas that transitions and changes might come on an annual basis. But before we dive into that catastrophic plan, one of the things I want to encourage you to consider is having key person insurance policy on you, the senior leader. Now, many years ago, our bank that was carrying our mortgage loan actually required this, and some of you may have this as well, actually required key person insurance on me to as a backstop to help the church cover our mortgage through that season of change, that there can potentially be a drop in attendance, a drop in contributions. And we carried a $1 million policy. What our bank required is that they were the recipients of $500,000. That was not going to pay off our mortgage in any way, shape, or form at that time, but it would just guarantee that mortgage payments could be paid and made through that season of change and transition until a new leader is in place. And now there's momentum going and offerings maybe have returned to what we'd call somewhat normal. So we had a $1 million policy, 500,000 went to the bank as they required. We upped it to a full $1 million policy so that the church was the other benefactor, and that the church would receive that 500,000 just once again to help them navigate through that 1 to 2 year potential season and awkwardness and change and transition and getting a new leader established, just to give some breathing room. That's including that we already have an emergency reserve fund of several hundred thousand. Now it's much more, but at that time we had about 300,000 in our emergency reserve fund, as Dave Ramsey in Financial Peace talks about. I would recommend that you talk to your board. It's just a term life insurance policy. It wasn't that much per month, but it's just another safety net for you as you navigate and walk through and prepare your church for what could be a very difficult season. So as we talk about the catastrophic plan, one of the first things that is in our catastrophic plan that I more or less wrote, presented to the board, we made some tweaks and adjustments, is I gave them a list of pastors to consult and to help the board of directors navigate this process. So I have listed here, I'm looking at my plan, I have listed here about 5-6 different pastor friends. I have the relationship that I have with them. I give their expertise and their cell number, their assistant's cell number, any way, shape, and form, their spouse's cell number, so that in a crisis that they would know how to reach these people of influence that could lead and help them navigate. And so one of the pastors I list here is Pastor Craig Taylor. He's been a 40-year friend, and here's where Craig's role is valuable. Craig is excellent at loving people and being there for the family. And he served on our board for many years, and he is going to be that one to come into town. He's going to love on the staff. He's going to love on the church. He's going to be there to, he just exudes with love. And he's going to be there as that support. Many of you might know Pastor Gerald Brooks out of Plano, North Dallas, Texas. He's a leadership guru. Pastor Brooks is I'm just going to say he excels in handling crisis situations. He has navigated and helped churches and pastors navigate crisis all over the nation. And I put him down because he's going to be the one to come in to consult on the practical process to lead Rock Family Church through a very difficult season. And then I've listed some other pastors, their roles, their availability. Another pastor friend has recently changed he stepped out of his lead pastor role, and he would be a phenomenal person for he and his wife to potentially come in and maybe just get a VRBO, and they are here and they are an interim voice and an interim pastor maybe for several months just to bring some peace. I also listed a local pastor here in Colorado Springs that I am very good friends with, that he knows the city. He potentially would know some resources or could help his church staff, could help us with any potential staffing things. And so I just want my board to be equipped. Who do we call when a tragedy happens? Who's going to help us navigate through this process? And then one of the things that is part of our catastrophic plan is who will take that interim lead. Well, as our bylaws are written, that as the senior pastor, I am the president of the board, and that in my absence, the vice president, just as we had seen in politics, in the absence of the president, the vice president would assume leadership of the board of directors. That doesn't necessarily mean that they would assume leadership of the church. And so right now on my bylaws, my pastor friend, Mark Bitliff, who is here in Colorado, he is our vice president. He's a pastor on the western portion of Colorado, but he would lead and navigate the board through this process of finding a replacement in my absence. The first option that we have listed for an interim lead is that Kim Hawk, my wife, who is co-founder and lead pastor as well, that she would have first right of refusal to assume the role of lead pastor and to step in as a lead pastor and ultimately then as president of the board and lead the board until a replacement is found. In our conversations, Kim is already on the board of directors, but in our conversations, Kim has made it very clear that she's got the administration portion, but not the visionary, the Sunday teaching, and that would not be something that she would want to carry in the middle of that time and season. And so in the event, the board just would say, Kim, would you like to lead? She has that. Then what we would then say is that the next person in line here on our staff would be our executive pastor, Pastor Josh Hawk. He would then lead the staff, lead the church, and navigate the general day-to-day operations and function of the church staff, our services. He would oversee that. And then he would also lead then in fulfilling the Sunday teaching, whether that was him or if we've got guest pastors or our staff pastors, he's going to oversee and navigate that process. And then I have put in writing that the goal of the board of directors is to be as transparent as possible with the staff and the church members throughout this process, because knowledge will alleviate fear of the unknown. And so just as they have information, they release that. We've got candidates, we've hired, what the process is in the replacement. And then we have specifically named our HR staff person, that Alicia has the life insurance policy that RFC holds on my behalf or on the church's behalf, and that they are the beneficiary. Now that we've paid off our church, there's still, I think, 2 years left on our key person insurance. And so the entire $1 million policy would come directly back to the church. But once again, making sure who has that insurance policy and who has that paperwork and how do we handle it. Then as well, we leave with the board of directors in a secured file all of Kim and I's passwords to our computers, to our church electronics, so that if they need to get in and see files and download information or whatever that might be, that someone has access to that. And then we've established what are the potential replacement guidelines. And so we've established in writing, the board of directors should be slow in choosing and naming a replacement. And I'm wanting them to pre-think if something tragic should happen. We don't need to make an emotional rush decision. Oh, our pastor's gone. We need to hire someone. We need to be slow in the hiring process, that we have a strong staff. We have strong outside pastoral support so that we can continue the ministry with excellence for this interim period. And then we give them guidelines that even if there is a potential obvious candidate from within the organization, the board of directors should look and pursue all options before making a decision. And so we, in the guidelines, have stated that the first place for the board to look for a replacement is from within the organization of our church, because we all know it's the symbolic of our physical body. An organ transplant from a family member has the least potential of rejection and the highest level of acceptance. If I suddenly go and suddenly pass, it's going to be best for the body if there's someone qualified. It's going to be best if there's somebody already in the church, in the family, in the house to step into that senior leadership. Then the board of directors we're asking them to form a search committee, possibly made up of board members, elders, staff, and church members. But in our selection process, it is the board of directors that will determine who will be the next incoming lead senior pastor for Rock Family Church. And so then I give them guidelines of each of the potential staff members that we have. I give a breakdown and an overview it's updated on an annual basis of what are the strengths, what are the growth points that I have a working knowledge, and especially if Kim and I would go together, that we carry a working knowledge of what we have of our staff members and knowing their strengths and growth points, that we make that clearly defined among our pastoral team as who would be potential candidates in the case of a tragedy or crisis. And so then I list, here are the steps in finding potential candidates. The first one is to contact other lead pastors. The best candidates come from personal referrals. Does any pastor friends in our circle of relationships have somebody on their team that could step out of an executive position into a lead pastor position, or a campus pastor that could step over and come here to be a lead pastor? Then I've made it very clear that through my Dean Hawk Ministries email distribution goes out to around 12,000 pastors, that's a great avenue to say, hey, Rock Family Church is looking for a new lead pastor. Then we're going to look at any associations, Bible colleges, affiliations, organizations that we might have relationship with that we could ask or see, does anyone know somebody who would be a potential candidate? And then ultimately, I've challenged our church staff to strongly consider hiring a headhunter, hiring a staffing consultant to come on board. You may have heard of these names. Vanderbloemen is a very well-known organization out of the Dallas area. Slingshot and Agora are two other search firms that work specifically with the church industry. And then one that I have become a personal fan of is called Group 139, and it's group139.com. And group and one are spelled out, and then 39 are the numbers, group139.com. And that is how we found our most recent hire of our executive pastor, Pastor Josh, that just joined our team this summer and has come on board with us. And Kim and I had a phenomenal experience working with Group 139 and their team, and it was just an excellent process. I will tell you that all of the search firms are paid, and you will pay a good dollar amount for it. But what I would tell you is it saves a lot of headache and a lot of hassle and searching through a lot of resumes, and they do a lot of the homework for you. And then the last thing that I put in the catastrophic plan is I laid out what are the specific qualities to look for. That if I was going to replace myself, here's the qualities that I'm going to look for. And it's everything. I'm looking for a visionary. I'm looking for someone who truly loves people and loves serving the King. I want somebody with strong leadership skills. We need an excellent teacher and communicator of God's word. I want somebody that's humble and teachable and always willing to grow and learn. I want somebody that's warm, friendly, and has a genuine personality. Someone who enjoys being reachable and touchable with the sheep. Because I'm looking for someone who's going to take on the attributes that Kim and I have led for 20 plus some odd years. And Kim and I are reachable and touchable. And if it's not going to work to bring somebody in who's used to sitting in the green room before service and immediately goes to the green room when services are over. And so I'm going to look for someone that is committed to reaching outward to our city, that has a passion to reach outward, that leads by example, and they're willing to get their hands dirty and to serve. I'm going to look for someone that has clean personal finances with a high credit score, that they are instituting the values and principles of Financial Peace University, because that is the way Kim and I have ran this church for 20 years. And so we're going to, obviously, as I am aging and I'm getting older, I'm in my early 60s. I don't want you to replace me if I kick the bucket. Don't replace me with somebody my age. Definitely go back a couple decades and find someone in their 30s, maybe in their 40s. That's what we're looking for. And then one of the things that we're huge on any staff hire, but especially in trying to replace me in a staff hire, is the wife should be heavily interviewed, as she plays such an anchor role in this position. Not that she has to be on staff as Kim is or was, not that she has to take the role that Kim has, but we cannot alleviate that this potential candidate is married and she is going to be a person of influence just because of her relationship with the lead pastor. And then I'm going to ask them to submit a clear 1-year plan and a 3-year plan of how they would navigate this transition and what they would suggest in this tragedy. And so that's just kind of the basic guts of what we do. I would highly encourage you to sit down, prepare this fall as you have some time, and whenever your annual board meeting is coming up, I would recommend that you put together a catastrophic plan. Have somebody check with your insurance company, check on a term life insurance policy. Maybe you don't need $1 million. Look at your annual church budget and what does it take to fund and to operate that, and maybe consider funding 1 year's budget. I don't know. That might be kind of hefty depending on the church size, but what would be there as a supplement? So I hope you'll check out all of our resources at deanhawk.com, and you know they are always free, and we appreciate your feedback. And then last thing I'll say before I go is, if you need any coaching, if you have any questions, if you need to bounce an idea off somebody, email me, dean@rockfamilychurch.com. I'd love to set up a phone call or a Zoom call with you and help coach you through. That is free of charge. Just believe in helping pastors. So God bless you guys. We will see you next month. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. For a free sermon series and teaching outlines by Pastor Dean, visit us at deanhawk.com. Be sure and join us next month as we continue our growth on leadership.